Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our study options webinar for GED graduates. Thanks for joining us. University and college studies can involve a significant commitment of time and finances, and there are many positive reasons behind the decision to pursue further study, including improving your career prospects and multiple other reasons. My name is Sean Swartz. I'm the CEO of SK Education Solutions, the official office of the GED in South Africa, as well as throughout Africa. We are live this afternoon on YouTube, and we have made the comments facility available for you to post your questions. So please feel free to type your questions in the comments facility. We will be monitoring these questions, and we will try our best to ensure that our expert panelists answer your questions. The GED itself has been established for over 75 years. It's a testing body that was built on trust and recognition. Today, the GED has grown to become the #1 most recognized higher secondary certificate worldwide. The GED program is the only higher secondary certificate available in over 85 countries around the world and accepted by nearly all universities in the US and many across the world. One of the benefits of the GED is its flexibility to test on each individual schedule. The exams can be taken at any time throughout the year, ensuring that you as students don't need to wait months for a specific exam date. You as students can schedule your exams when you are ready to write them. A huge thing that comes out of this is stress. You don't have to write all your exams over a period of a few days. You can study for one exam at a time. You then book and you write that exam, you pass that exam, and then you move on to the next exam. So from a stress perspective, it makes a huge difference as well. Today, we're privileged to have Ruan Venter with us. He's joined from Boston City campus. He is the administration registrar, I think I got that right, from Boston City campus. Boston was actually founded many years ago in 1991. And currently have over 100 courses for you to choose from. They are accredited in South Africa as well as internationally. And if you have any GED or Boston City campus related questions, please feel free to type your questions in the comments section of YouTube. We will be monitoring these questions and we will try our best to ensure that we get to answer them. Also, I'd like to thank Angela as well as Lindsay, who have joined us from the GED to answer all your GED specific questions. So Ruan, thank you for joining us. We're very excited for you to share your knowledge with our audience.
Good afternoon, Sean, Angela, Lindsay, and all the interested people that's viewing this presentation. If you don't mind, I would like to share my presentation with you so that we can actually just wade through very important information. So I just want to highlight whatever I'm going to talk about today is going to be Boston City campus specific, and I'll also broadly look at the broader higher education spectrum, looking at a public university as well as a private higher education provider. So without any hesitation, let's just look quickly why so many universities and so many private higher education institutions normally asks from a GED graduate for a SAQA evaluation of the award that they've achieved. Now, the only reason why that is a requirement is that by the South African Qualifications Authority Act, this SAQA, is mandated to evaluate the standing academically of a qualification that is non-resident qualification to South Africa. So it's not on the South African National Qualification Framework. This is a qualification, the GED, is a qualification that's based in the US of A, and therefore a lot of providers, as universities and privates, will then ask you to have it evaluated, and then you get a formal statement to what the standing of the GED is by comparison to something similar in South Africa. And we know at this point in time that it is evaluated as in unequal standing to something like a national senior certificate, which is an NQF level 4 and known as a grade 12 qualification. The second thing that universities tend to require from a GED graduate is that they either need to sit for the SATs or the NBT, which is the National Benchmark Test. And that we find is normally where a student wants to enter in a field of study where a certain level of skill needs to be present or tested, like in science or in mathematics, etc. And then they will make this a purposeful requirement for entry into a program. So if we then go and have a look, if you specifically look at coming to Boston City campus, you'll see that I have created here a slide that tells you if you come from the GED, the most important thing that has to happen.
I'm sorry to interrupt. None of us can see your presentation. Can you just ensure that you're sharing your screen correctly before we continue with the presentation?
Let me just try that again, Sean. Is it sharing now? Let's just have a look.
Yes, now it's coming up. Now we can see.
Okay. Apologies for that. There it is now. Okay, so if you look at what I've put up on the screen here now, the GE applicant must first of all be 18 years old. Now, if you look at your assessment criteria, that you need to write the GED age 17. So this requirement means that you need to turn 18 in the first year of higher education studies with our institution, and it's most likely going to be the same with any other private higher education or public university institution. Now, how we internalized the requirement for admission into a higher certificate is we just say that you have to pass all 4 elements of the assessment, all 4 assessments, and the pass mark is 145. Now, also what you need to understand here, if the GED applicant has a combined score between 580 and 604, that means if we add all 4 the assessments together divided by 4, that will still fall within the class higher certificate with Boston City campus. Now, by comparison, if we just go and have a look at what we can offer you in these fields, these are the 10 pure higher education qualifications. This means that they sit on the South African National Qualifications Framework under the higher education sub-framework. It means that they are quality controlled by the Department of Higher Education, licensed to Boston to offer these qualifications, and that we also understand that it falls under the Quality Council for the Council on Higher Education. So you can see that we are strongly vested in commerce, but that we also do touch and feel across the board into HIV/AIDS counseling and management, for example. We venture into the legal field now, and this qualification only became available yesterday for selection. We can do a higher certificate, NQF level 5. All of these are NQF level 5 in paralegal studies, and that we have content in tourism and travel, and everywhere you'll see a little bit of management coming in. And we're also strongly vested in advertising and marketing practice. So these are all available in our prospectus. It's also available on the Boston City campus website. And I'll highlight the significance of this in a moment. So just bear in mind what we do offer, and we can deal with those a little bit later in the presentation. So how do you have access to diploma studies with us? Again, that same rule applies. The student must have a minimum age entry requirement, 18 years in the first year of study. Now, if you go and have a look at what we've put in place, we said that for the reasoning through language arts, the RTLA module, you need to score 150 or more. That is to satisfy our own internal requirement. It's a Boston requirement, meaning that you can study with comprehension and that you will navigate through the learning material quite well and that you will cope with it. But what is important is the second criteria. Remember, if you score up until 604, it means you're going to fall in the class higher certificate. If you score 605 up to 624, you fall within the frame of the Boston City campus reference for diploma studies. What is important is here that we have two qualifications that starred out here. You'll remember from the higher certificate slide that we did not have a higher certificate yet in network systems or in ITC. So at this point in time, should you want to enroll for ITC or, like you can see, network systems or systems development, that will be your only option. Again, these qualifications are on NQF level 6. Again, quality controlled by the Higher Education Council, and they are more narrow in scope, meaning that we do not have a huge variety of these qualifications, but that the main subjects or the core subjects that sit in there lend them very well into articulation onto an NQF level 7, meaning degree studies. So I just want you to note that there's also not a degree available at Boston as of yet, and that's why it's got a star in information technology. But what I want you to really take is that if you are planning to study a degree, and I'll explain it in a bit, rather enroll for a higher certificate instead of a diploma. And I know I'm going to get questions about this later in the presentation, but there's a clear reason and why we recommend that. And it will become apparent in a bit. So just to provide clarity, and a lot of youngsters don't understand truly what it means. That endorsement that you find on a South African matric, a national senior certificate, or pre-2008 senior certificate, or you have an NCD qualification. So it basically means that you are eligible to either enroll, if the endorsement says high certificate or diploma or bachelor's degree, to enroll for a bachelor's or a degree. But the problem comes in that if someone completes a higher certificate and they don't have an endorsement for degree studies, you still need to get permission to enroll and graduate from a degree. That is all that little statement says at the bottom of the National Senior Certificate. Now, from my previous slide, you remember I said that the GED is not a resident qualification, so therefore there is no way that the Department of Basic Education in South Africa can give an endorsement for a GED graduate. And therefore, there's always this question mark that's raised: how do I get this permission? And this is where the matriculation board comes into play, and why a higher certificate becomes important to someone that has completed the GED. So just for clarity, a lot of applicants will say, I am applying to USAP for an exemption certificate, which is in actual fact not true. University South Africa was formerly known as Higher Education South Africa. They've got a mandate, and that mandate is just to strengthen the governance of universities. And what you also need to understand, where in the slide it says institutional autonomy and academic freedom, it means that it actually decides across the board. All the principals of the universities and the registrars come together, and they decide what is the standards that needs to be met to get those endorsements that we've actually spoken about. Why does a matriculant get a higher certificate endorsement, or a diploma and higher certificate, or a degree, diploma and higher certificate endorsement? It's because the rules are put in place here, and that is where it's actually put forward. And Umalusi is the Quality Council for School Leavers, or the National Basic Department of Basic Education Qualifications, like I've mentioned before, then evaluate the programs for quality and see that those standards are basically met. So the Matriculation Board has got a different mandate. They work by statute. This means according to Act 101 of 1997, which is the Higher Education Act, they are mandated to approve non-compliant or non-endorsed applicants with permission to actually enroll for a degree. So that means anyone holding a non-South African qualification, such as the GED, or sorry to mention it, but the Cambridge qualification, for example, if you want to enroll for a degree in South Africa, you are going to have to apply for that permission, because you do not have that yet. And how do you get that permission? Well, there are two ways. The first being, the GED candidate can apply to USAF directly. Meaning, if you apply to USAF directly for an exemption certificate, you're going to have to jump the hoops. You're going to have to get your American University acceptance letter, etc., etc. You're going to have to maybe do your SACWA evaluation, and you're going to have to get a letter granting you permission to register from a South African institution, and then they might still ask you for authenticated documents, etc. So it becomes a very long and lengthy, and sometimes a quite tedious process to manage on your own. And then what you will find is that these foreign conditional exemption certificates, especially when you enter the higher education field by the higher certificate route, have an expiry date on it. And that is something that's really important, something that you need to consider, because immediately what it says is that you can't defer studies. You can't take a pause, you can't take a break. Now, in the GED, you can make more than one attempt to actually pass an assessment, and you can write the assessments whenever you feel like it. But in higher education, we run in cohorts, meaning semester-based, and subjects must be completed at a specific time and must start in a specific time. And if you postpone a module, you're going to run out of time, meaning that the Matriculation Board that's now given you permission to complete the degree by X date, that certificate expires and you will have to reapply for it. So let's then have a look at the next slide here. And this is where you then see the two pathways. And this is where I said I will have a look, either the direct route, where you go straight to the Matriculation Board, you apply for foreign conditional exemption, or the following two. Option one is the highest certificate, which is an NQF level, which then is presented by the institution where you've completed it, and then wanting to continue into higher education studies. Let's say with Boston, you want to now enroll for a degree. We then have to provide you with a letter granting you permission to register. And we offer the NQF level 5 higher certificate as preparatory studies to it. And that's why you then take that certificate and you will apply to the Matriculation Board with that certificate. Again, remember from the previous slide, it comes with the condition that it has an expiry date. You need to complete the degree in X time. Option 2, the diploma route. You start with NQF level 6. I just want you to be aware that the process is the same, but the access into a degree is just a little bit longer, and it becomes a little bit more challenged because of certain things like credits and that you need to accumulate and transfer across. And I know that there will be questions about that as well, because we don't want to redo things. Just for interest sake, at our institution, we have a limitation on the GED for access into our degree in accounting. There is the absence of accounting or pure accounting in the GED qualification, and we therefore will require any GED candidate who wants to go into a degree in financial accounting to start off with a higher certificate in accounting. You need that foundation to be able to move forward. Okay, option 3. And this is where I think a lot of people will be truly surprised. As of the 1st of this month, October, I want to highlight to you that GED applicants is required to turn 18 in the first year of study. You need to achieve at present, and this condition might lift to a higher value, at least 155 for the reasoning through arts, or through language arts as the module, and your overall combined score for the four assessments need to be 625 or more. Then we will grant you with admission to our program, conditioned to the fact that you need to apply for an exemption certificate. Now, here are those degrees that we offer at the moment, very strongly vested in the commerce fields. Again, you see law, the accounting, obviously, I already mentioned to you. I'm not going to repeat it again, but as long as you understand that that's the pathway, you have to follow the higher certificate route to go to accounting. But if you have completed a higher certificate, for example, in paralegal, and you want to end up going into commerce law, then you are welcome to do so, because we will take the higher certificate as preparatory studies. Okay, so how does this all now start fitting in together? So to summarize, and I'll make this available to Sean and the team, the way to read this is looking at the column requirement. Those slides summarize. If you have a combined score of 518 and 145 at the minimum for the RTLA, and I'll use that abbreviation for convenience, and your maximum score for all four, the assessment combined 604, you immediately get entrance into a higher certificate with Boston. Should your overall combination of the assessments value 605 to 624 and the minimum score is 150 or above for the RTLA assessment, you will be falling into access for NQF level 6 diploma studies. And then lastly, obviously, there you see 625 at minimum or more and 155 for the RTLA. We will accept you directly for access into degree. Now, how does this translate by example? It's just to show you how those conditions actually can pan out. I want you to look specifically at line B, or student B in this case. The student did not score 150 for the language, but the overall score for 4 assessments combined calculates up to 625, which meets the requirement for a degree, but because that RTLA module was too low, the student can only commence with a higher certificate. Typically, the same thing happened at level student D, and the minimum requirement for degree is 155 on the RTLA, and the student achieved 1.2 little, and the overall combination, though, is still actually allowed for a degree, and that's why you see the little star there. But because they didn't meet the one requirement, they will be required to go into a diploma. Remember here, if your goal is to go into a degree, I would recommend that you rather than start with a higher certificate and not with a diploma. And I'll still get to the reason for that. So at the moment, a matriculation exemption application is 610 Rand. I'm not sure, I haven't received any communication from the manager there at the Matriculation Board to the changes in fees for 2022. So for the time being, if you are going to apply for an exemption certificate, the cost will be 610. So we have two scenarios. Any GED applicant who has completed their qualification first from January onwards, 2019, the preceding slides apply, pure. If you are a graduate of the GED, December 2018 and before, we're going to evaluate your application on an individual basis because there was a change at some point in time with the GED from 6 to 4 assessments, etc. I'm sure Sean and those guys in Johannesburg will be able to explain that a little bit better. So the alternative entry for students here is either the high certificate route, or we're going to look at the diploma route, or we might even justify your acceptance into a degree, for example, via the mature age exemption route and in combination of the results achieved. So, general points to ponder on. We don't, at Boston, we don't ask you a fee to apply. There's no administration to assist you in actually applying for studies with us. Our branches, then, there are 46 straddled all across South Africa that can assist our applicants with an application process. They will also be able to assist you, and internally in my office, my team will assist with matriculation board applications. Now, there's a reason to come to Boston. In addition, we at the moment have a subsidy on our higher certificates, where students save up to 1/3 of higher education certificate study fees. And in addition, if you are admitted to a degree, the CAT means we will consider you for credit accumulation and transfer in, or exemption from modules. Now, overall, I want to add one more thing. You typically will be required to apply to SACWA for an evaluation certificate. It can be in the cost of 2,500 Rand or more. Here at Boston, we know what the GED is. We know where it is pegged in equivalency to the National Qualification Framework, as I've already explained. So if you apply for admission to Boston, higher certificate, diploma, or a degree, we're not going to require a SACWA certificate. If you meet the requirements of a higher certificate and diploma entry, we will accept you without SACWA because we know what it is. Should you want to apply for degree studies and you only meet diploma or higher certificate entry according to our scores, we will assist you on completion of that to apply for a matric exemption certificate with the Matriculation Board at USAC. If you do meet the requirements for degree entry, as I've previously explained, the 155 for the RTLA module and 625 for the 4 assessments combined, we do not have to play the SACWA game. We do not have to go and do foreign qualification evaluation. We give you direct admission. We accept you directly to study a degree with us. And we will write the motivation for same with the Matriculation Board. We will go as far as to assist you with that exemption certificate application. And as soon as we've done that evaluation, we can register and commence with studies without delay. Thank you. That's Sean.
Ron, thank you so much for a huge amount of information. We do have a lot of questions that we want to go through, but even before those questions, the fact that Boston now don't require GED graduates to go to SAQA or to the Matriculation Board or USAF, I believe is a huge positive for Boston, and it's an amazing thing that it shows how Boston recognize and understand what the GED is all about, and recognize the level and allow students to now go directly into certain degrees, which is really obviously based on certain criteria, but there's criteria for even for the South African National Senior Certificate. So I think it's great news. It's news to me, so it's news to everybody because we didn't know about it. So this is breaking news for all GED students on this webinar. We will make sure that we put some frequently asked questions up, etc., to help you guys understand it. Now, obviously, there's been a huge amount of information, and some of it may not have necessarily been all understood straight away from what Ruan said. So firstly, I would encourage you to go back. We will distribute the recording, and so you can go back and re-watch certain parts of the webinar to see if you can fully understand it. If you still don't understand anything, we're here to help you. So you're welcome to contact us at the GED. The email address is info@ged.org.za. Ruan, is there a general email that they can also contact you directly, or not you, but to contact Boston directly if they want to know anything specific from Boston?
Well, you know, if we have a look at what I presented to you today, I said it became an effective admission policy from our institution as of the 1st of the month. We are at present still busy compiling the prospectus for next year, so all this information will be summarized and included in there. And very similar to what was in the presentation. But at this point in time, to make it simple, if you hold your GED certificate and you have your transcript, just go to the Boston website, apply, and we will assist you with the application. We'll communicate. We've got a dedicated team dealing with the Matriculation Board, and the guys will walk you through the system, through the process, and hold your hand all the way up until the day you receive your books and you commence with your studies. There's just one thing in addition that we need to also highlight, which is really important. Most GED students are already familiar with studying remotely. You do not have to come to a Boston support center because Boston is an online institution in the distance mode, and it works on the same modality as the GED anyway. So should you be wanting to study a South African degree, and you can be anywhere in the world, you're more than welcome to apply as well. And the only requirement is you still need to do the Matriculation Board exemption, irrespective of where you are in the world, because you are enrolling for a South African degree.
Okay, good. And just to clarify, if students do go to the website and make an application, the cost of that application, there's no cost. Is that correct? It's free application.
We will communicate the banking details, etc., of the Matriculation Board. That exemption certificate fee is not received by Boston. It's paid directly to the Matriculation Board. But Boston's admission officers and application office will collect the information for each applicant, and we will then make the submission to the Matriculation Board. So whatever inquiries, queries, etc., we deal with it, and it's generally accepted. As soon as we evaluated that application, we've issued the letter, and we've made the submission to USAF. It's virtually a registration.
Correct. The second question I've got is, what higher certificates are offered? Now, I know you had a list in your presentation. Would it be possible just to go back to that presentation and on that slide and not only, and actually just spend a couple of minutes explaining to the students the topics or the idea behind each of those higher certificates so that they know which ones they may be interested in considering.
Okay, if you just give me a little second, let me just get back to that slide quickly, and then I'll
No problem.
open it.
You just need to click on share as well. Don't
Yeah,
forget
I'm going to share it again. And it's not shared yet. The presentation, here it comes. Is it available now?
Yes, perfect. So if you could just talk through these higher certificates, just so people know approximately what are they all about? What would they learn if they studied these?
Well, I think if you go and have a look at advertising, I think it's very straightforward. You know, the integrated communication practice, there's such a strong link between marketing and advertising as well as public relations, that and also understanding business and the administration. So there's a strong overlap in certain business commerce modules within these qualifications anyway, as a full set or range. There will always be a little bit of accounting maybe in it, and definitely business management. So it really depends, and you need to be 100% sure what you're going to pick, because the only requirement that I really will have, if you apply for a degree and you want to be in management, I would not go and enroll you for something like HIV/AIDS counseling and management. I wouldn't do that because it's not cognitively true to one another. I'll rather recommend that you do a business management practice, or you know, something more like a marketing practice if you want to enroll for a BCom in commerce with management and marketing. So it's either or. It just makes better sense that way. The advertising is more advertising, having a little bit of PR. The marketing has a strong PR element, but it's not advertising. It's more marketing. You know, I'm not the subject field expert yet, but I think what is offered, if I have to just summarize it, it's broad enough to have a selection of the ones that's on the screen here, the paralegal, the tourism, the travel, the HR, that will complement whatever degrees are available. So
I think in general, I mean, if students look, there's 10 higher certificates. The basic description of those higher certificates is essentially what they are going to be learning and what they should be interested in. However, what you've said is very, very important, because many students, if they only qualify to get into the higher certificate now and not to a degree, but intend on doing a degree eventually, and they'll end up doing the higher certificate first, as you said, they should do a higher certificate that relates to the degree. And so let's just talk about that in very quickly. So if we look at number 7, higher certificate in business management. Now, as I understand it, there's also an undergrad degree in business management.
Yes.
If a student in management marketing, good, thank you. And let's say a student has finished their higher certificate in business management. They've spent an entire year doing this higher certificate. Can they get some credits towards their degree when they do move on to their degree, or do they have to start their degree from scratch?
You don't have to start the degree from scratch, because that is where, in our motivation, for degree studies, we actually indicate that we will be considering the applicant for credits to be accumulated or to exempt them from certain modules. What is important is that people understand the difference between what is a credit and what is an exemption. An exemption is, we say you have done something similar, you don't have to do it again. Or if you by naming convention at the same NQF level with at least 75% overlapping the content of the module, satisfy the credit that's laying inside a degree. We can actually take the higher certificate and we allocate or we transfer those credits into the degree. There are limitations. For example, if a lot of people misunderstand NQF level 5 versus NQF level 7. If a module is, you've done brand management 1, it's NQF level 5. Now you're not going to get brand management at NQF level 7, even if the credits are the same value. The NQF levels don't align, so that's just not going to happen. So typically a student should never look at the naming convention and the description and by default make the assumption that it's the same thing. The assessment and the level is just completely different.
And if you could quickly just go through to the degree slide, the degrees that are available, just so that we can quickly read through them.
Just waiting for the slide to pop up.
Now, obviously, there's acceptance criteria, but let's assume you are accepted. Other than so you can do a Bachelor of Commerce in Management Marketing. You can do a Bachelor of Accounting, but you can't go directly into the Bachelor of Accounting. You have to do the higher certificate first. Commerce in Law. You can do Commerce in HR Management, and you can do a Bachelor in Social Science. So there's a whole range of undergrad degrees that GED students can now apply and go and study directly after graduating from their degree, as long as they satisfy the entry requirements, just like any other student would.
Yeah.
Right.
Remember, Sean, from the table that I've showed you, those enrollment criteria.
Yes, those are the criteria.
Yeah, our internal criteria. So if you meet that, yes, from that table, the 155 for the RTLA module, yes. If you meet that and you have 625 combined assessment results, any of these programs, you will find entry, except for the accounting.
Except for the accounting.
That definitely needs a foundation. And that's the only one where the internal requirement is you must hold pure math and accounting at NQF level 4.
Got it. Got it. So we've got about just under 20 minutes left of our webinar. So I'd like to jump straight into further questions. So if you can just switch off the sharing, and then we can go into other questions. The first question is from Wendy. Do you offer the GED for those that still need to do it? Well, I think that's a question for Boston. So I can answer, but Boston themselves don't offer GED tuition, but there are many other colleges and schools out there that do offer the GED. If you are looking for a GED training provider that can help you prepare for the GED exams, you're more than welcome to contact us on info@ged.org.za, and we will refer you to a couple of the colleges out there. The second question is, can the GED be evaluated by SAQA here in South Africa? I mean, Ruan, you've basically answered that question. You said that they do evaluate it, but with you, they don't need to.
Indeed, because, you know, it might be institutionalized, these requirements. So university would like to see. Another private provider would like to see. But we have the opinion and the feeling that we know exactly what it is. We've received the same document a million times, and we don't see any reason or any logic in asking a GED student or graduate to resubmit a document that we already know what it is. We know where it is holding on the NQF, so there is absolutely no need.
Okay, excellent. Okay, here's an interesting question So we actually, through the GED, have quite a lot of students that are doing the GED in Namibia. And so the question here is, if I'm applying from Namibia, do I need to get a local evaluation from the Namibian Qualifications Authority as well as SAQA? So I guess, we can convert the question in, do you accept students from other countries if they just have the GED?
Irrespective of where you're from in the world, you may be from Cambodia, you might be from China, you might be from Hong Kong, in China, it doesn't matter. You only require a matriculation board exemption to graduate with this degree that you're going to study with us. And the reason for that is there's no endorsement on a GED. There's no permission granted for this person to study with us a degree. So irrespective if you're from Namibia or from any other SADC country or any part of Africa or any other part of the world, you don't need permission in Namibia to study a degree in South Africa. You don't need that. The permission is in South Africa. But we already—
And you'll manage all that for the student. Yes. They don't have to apply directly. You'll do all the applications on their behalf.
Yes, to the matriculation board, we have no dealings with SAQA. If you want to apply—
But there's no need. There's no need to go to SAQA.
Should a GED student apply to the matriculation board themselves, and they run into difficulties, they might even approach us if they have an admission open with us, and we will assist them further through the process. That's number one. Number two, if you apply to multiple institutions, each institution will have their own enrollment and academic requirements in place for admission. And when we permit a student in, the rules won't be the same at institution B or C. They might require you to do SAQA, we don't, and that's why we do not assist in any SAQA application. That would be purely for the GED applicant to follow that avenue.
Okay, thank you. The next question is actually, we'll give you a break for a moment, Ron. The next question is for Lindsay. It's from Kerry. It says, if I wish to apply for a reader for my dyslexic son, do I apply to GED South Africa or do I apply to GED International? And does Boston supply a reader, or do I need to find a reader once the concession has been given? Maybe you can just talk through how do concessions work and etc.
Okay, perfect, thanks. So in terms of the GED, they call it accommodations. You can apply for an accommodation. Actually, there's a specific accommodations department in America. You apply online and you need to submit valid and recent medical documents to support your application. It's very important that you apply before booking any test, and the review of your application can take 30 working days. Pearson itself appoints a reader or a scribe at the testing center. And that's why when you're booking a test with an accommodation, the process is different to your standard test booking process, because obviously they need to check that the testing center has the facilities to accommodate your accommodation, as well as the scribe or reader is available on your test date. But definitely there are accommodations available, and between the GED and Pearson, they organize everything.
So in summary, the next step for Kerry would be, I think, to give you to give our office a call and just to find out where to go and apply, etc., and you can guide her. So maybe just give the office a call on 011-728-0212 or email info@ged.org.za, and we'll be happy to guide you on the process to apply for an accommodation. So Ruan, here's one for you. It says, if I pass my GED and I have a certificate in HIV/AIDS counseling, can I study further at Boston?
Indeed. If this HIV, I'm sure, is referring to a higher certificate that we offer anyway. So immediately the answer is yes. The admission route will be making use of that higher certificate and not actually the GED.
Okay. Here's another one. If I was to further my studies overseas, what requirements are needed for me as a GED graduate? Lindsay?
So it really depends on the institution. A lot of institutions accept GED graduates with just their GED, especially American universities. Australian and New Zealand universities often require the GED together with the SATs. It would depend on the country and the specific institution, but a majority of institutions accept students with just a GED.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is a question we always get. Will the slideshow be made available directly to us? Unfortunately not. If you want to get information, you're going to have to go back to this recording, to this video on YouTube, and get the information until such time as Boston release their next year's prospectus. Because in their prospectus for next year, as Rowan mentioned, all the rules and the requirements will be listed. Am I correct, Rowan?
Indeed, it's indeed the case. Although it's not published yet, the application staff in the admissions office already know exactly what to do, what the requirements are. They can evaluate cases. They will assist with exemption certificate applications, as well as for applications for permission to higher certificate, diploma, or degree status.
Okay.
Can I quickly just interject, if you don't mind? Earlier in the presentation, I said, why do we prefer a higher certificate over a diploma for degree entry? It is just logical sense that if you complete 1 year of higher certificate studies, it gives you entry into a degree, and we carry credits in. So it's first of all subsidized at the higher certificate level, and if you then enter into degree studies, you carry credits in, which is a further saving. And I think it was somewhere in one of the slides, if I recall. But if you do a diploma, you will have to complete the diploma. It means it's going to take 3 years, and the limitation is that we can only take half of the credits from the diploma and award it to you in the degree, meaning that it's going to take not 2 years, it's going to take 3 years to study the diploma, and it's going to take another 1.5 years on top of that to do a degree. But if you do a higher certificate and you can carry all the credits in, you're going to have the degree completed, depending on which higher certificate you completed, in at least 2 or 2.5 years. So it's another saving in time and expense.
That's amazing. That is amazing. So I think just to clarify, because I think a lot of people can't believe what they actually heard you saying regarding degree admission. So I'm just going to read it again, and says, USAF are no longer giving exemption. If I meet the requirements, can I be accepted for a degree? And would I need to apply for exemption from USAF? So it seems like there's a little bit of confusion, because they're saying, well, USAF are saying they won't give the letter, the exemption letter, so how can they apply to you? Are you saying that as an institution, as a blanket rule, you've decided that you will accept? Can you maybe just clarify it for these people that can't believe what they're hearing?
Okay, just to clarify, the application is submitted to our institution, Boston City Campus, for admission. We will permit you to enroll for a degree as long as you meet the criteria that I've discussed within this presentation. We then support the application for exemption on your behalf as the GED graduate with the Matriculation Board. So it means that you only deal with us as an institution by submitting an application. We take the process further, and we obtain the exemption certificate on your part. You'll receive it. The only thing we don't carry is the cost of the application to the Matriculation Board. That cost is for the GED graduate themselves. That the money parts directly with the Matriculation Board. In our communication with the applicant, we actually make that information available to them. We, in our acceptance letter, state the conditions of the admission, and it takes about 6 or 8 weeks for the, and it can at times stretch up to 10 weeks for the exemption certificate to be issued, but it will be made available to the applicant when we receive.
I think that's unbelievable, and I mean that's just a reason for all GED graduates to apply directly to Boston if they want to do a degree in South Africa. It just makes perfect sense. I mean, you guys fully understand what the GED is all about. You've embraced it, and you're making life so easy for our GED students. So I thank you personally for doing that. Here's a question, and I'm assuming the answer is just yes, but I will ask the question anyway, Ruan. Can a GED graduate enroll for a Bachelor of Social Science?
The answer is yes, as long as you meet the totals and the prescribed requirement.
Great. I see Hendrik did ask a question saying, I hear that USEF don't grant exemption letters, but I think we've covered that quite a few times already, saying that yes, they won't grant it directly, but if you want to study at Boston, you'll get it. So I'm answering that one for you. Here's a question, where can I get hold of Ruan? Well, that one I think is not something that we are going to be sharing very easily. I think you need to go through the proper channels at Boston. If you do want to speak to him or ask a question, or you want us to ask on your behalf, you're more than welcome to contact us or the Boston head office. But Ruan, I don't think, wants to share his email address directly with everybody here. Oh, here's another one. I think I know the answer, but Albertina asks, are these courses offered online?
Indeed, they are.
So that means that I don't have to come into a Boston college to study. I can sit at my desk at home and study my degree.
That's correct. It's in the full distance mode. It runs along the same lines as typically the GED. We have academic support in educators, as well as academic quality managers and program coordinators that are based at our academic head office here in the Western Cape. And, you know, you will interact with them. You have open access to them via the learning platform. And I think the GED students are quite familiar with the platform. It's very similar in what we use. So that is that's even a further motivation. It's not a new platform, a new system. You're familiar with how it looks, you know the feel, etc.
Okay. Another question was, do you have online study options? Yes, the answer is yes. Albertina wants to know what are the fee structures? I assume that's on the website, or you're going to send them a quotation when they apply.
Yeah, at this point in time, if you're going to study abroad and you're not actually physically coming to South Africa, you have the choice to pick any of the 46 administrative centers here in South Africa. We call them support centers, and they will deal with you directly. So first thing is apply, get accepted, do the USAF thing. The guys from the support centers will then deal with you on quotations and the logistics around the books, etc., etc.
Okay. So essentially, if you go through the free application process, you will get a quotation and you will know exactly how much the specific higher certificate or the specific degree costs based on what your requirements are. Okay.
Yes, and in addition to that, it's also depending on the number of credits that will be carried.
Okay.
So if you get credit exempted from certain modules, obviously that will have a reduction in fees.
Got it. Got it. So here's an interesting question. My RLA mark, which is that English exam, is 154, and my overall for the 4 subjects is 630. do I qualify for a degree?
No.
So the no is simply because of the RLA mark. Is that correct? So there's two options. You go and you do a higher certificate. The other option, Angela, can you confirm this? Can they go and rewrite their RLA exam to try and get a better mark so that they can then apply and get, if they get over 155, then they can do the degree. Is that right?
Yes, for sure. For sure, they can rewrite. There is a little bit of a process involved. They welcome to contact us if they do want to rewrite, and we will explain to them how to apply to rewrite a subject if they want a higher score.
Okay, and the reason why you need to apply is because you've already passed the subject. So it's
Correct.
not like if you failed it where you can automatically just rewrite
Correct.
it. If you've passed the subject, you have to apply to rewrite it.
Correct, yes. Their profile will not allow them to just rebook the exam again if they have passed it.
Okay. And Ruan, a very important question. If I'm sitting in China, as you said, or I'm sitting in Namibia, where do I write my exams?
Online.
So it's all done online.
Online.
You invigilate online, and it's all done online in the comfort of your home.
Yes, I think the only limitation that we will have is if there by chance might be a requirement for an invigilator, then we will also make use of a scribe, and which is also a very simple process of nominating someone, and it will be presented to our assessment administration office, and they will then liaise with the person, and they will approve the person or say no, we need someone else to do it. And so it's not difficult at all.
Okay, we are running out of time, so just one quick question. When do applications close?
Never.
Never, so I can apply whenever I want. It's so much like the GED, it's unbelievable. Okay.
To be quite honest with you, the application is always open. You can apply at any time up until the day we close the registrations for a semester. But then you can still apply for the next semester. It's just you postponing the commencement date.
So essentially, if you miss one semester, you just have to wait a couple of months and you can start. You don't have to wait a whole year.
No, we've got two intakes. The one is in Jan, Feb, March. The other one will be either June, July, August, depending.
Okay. And finally, it's asking specifically on social studies, but I'm just going to ask it generally. If I want to know more information on any of the higher certificates or the degrees, I assume detailed information is available on the website.
Indeed. The prospectus of 2021 is available for download and view. And the applicants or any interested GED graduates may contact any of the 46 Boston support centers or our national call center. So I think the easy stop is the Boston website, and find your way there, either the information, who to contact, where to apply. There's a call center available that will assist you great all the way.
Perfect. And what is the website?
www.boston.co.za.
Excellent. Ruan, thank you so much for all your time and expertise and the amazing breaking news that you gave to all these GED students today. Lindsay and Angela, thank you also for answering the questions. And I hope everybody enjoyed the webinar. I hope it was very useful to you. If there is any other information you want to ask, we're always available. Just email us on info@ged.org.za. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great evening. Thanks.